Right, here's one that's been on my things that I need to react to list for quite a while. 25 common misconceptions about the United States that simply aren't true. A lot of British channels react to this, and now it's finally my turn. Let's get into it. Looking forward to this.
The United States often
and also, of course, any that pop up that I've heard of before, I'll mention if I've heard of them, if I believe them or not. And if something comes up that I believed, I'll admit it.
draws a lot of flack from the rest of the world for everything. From its foreign policy to the way it runs its domestic affairs. In fact, it seems like there are few things that can divide the world more evenly and more strongly than asking people what their opinion is of the United States. Everyone has an opinion. Even in the same city, you'll meet people who fall on the extreme sides of the spectrum. But what is it exactly that causes America to be so messed up? Even America's own politicians can't seem to stop talking about how messed up things are. Well, today we're going to take a deeper look.
True.
Are things really as bad as everyone seems to think they are? I'm Mike with List 25, and these are 25 common misconceptions about the United States that simply aren't true. And as a very important note, this list was produced by both a United States citizen and 2 European citizens that relocated to the United States.
Okay.
It's written to be as fair as possible. No, I'm not 2 Europeans. Or am I?
No, you're not.
All right, let's begin with a really common thought. Americans are ignorant about the world. Americans are held to an unrealistic standard.
Okay, right. This one, yeah. I do see that, like, I see it on Facebook all the time. Americans on Facebook saying, oh, I thought this celebrity was American. Oh, I thought this was in America. Like, Americans think the world is American, that stereotype. It is true because I've seen it. But I don't believe it about all Americans, obviously.
Since the rest of the world watch our movies and listen to our music, they know a lot about our country. But let's be honest, they never studied it. People actually complain that Americans don't even know that Czechoslovakia doesn't exist anymore. But neither does half the United Kingdom, and they're on the same continent. It turns out that all of us are pretty bad at geography. You'd think America would be better at it, however, considering another common thought is that America spends its days spying on everyone. And that's true, but who doesn't? Germany, France, Switzerland, Japan, Iceland, and all the rest
And
of
going to other countries and getting involved.
us spy on each other and ourselves. Moving on, America has been called racist. Please don't take this the wrong way. Racism definitely exists, and it makes the news. But you know what else? America also has a vicious media, and all of the world watches it, sometimes more than their own media.
Too controversial.
So when something super bad happens in other countries, it might not even make the back page. Next, it's a common misconception that Americans don't use public transport. While it's true that we use cars a lot, many regions in America have great public transport. Or at least just as good as Europe.
No, that's not one that I ever believed. I mean, one of the main things most British people know about New York is subway. So, no. But these days, you probably wouldn't want to use the New York subway.
Besides, what good is a train if nobody can afford it? We're looking at you, UK. Moving on.
Yeah.
America does/has/is fill in the blank. America is far from being a unified entity. Each state has its own laws, cultures, and quirks. Some states have the death penalty. Some don't. Some have strict gun laws, and some don't. Some have free college. Some don't. Some have tax, and some don't. So just like you can't say Europe is so-and-so, you can't say the same about the US. As an additional note, the states are far more independent than many of us realize. In fact, every state even has its own military, known as the Guard. Furthermore, some states pass legislation that directly contradicts
Is that the National Guard?
federal government. This is because in the US, the federal government is not the highest authority, the states are. To further establish the fact that America isn't a single entity, many believe that Americans only speak one language. But that's no different from the rest of the world. Have you ever been to France? Or the UK, or Italy, or how about China?
I don't know the exact number, but is it thought that there's like over 100 different languages or dialects just in the British Isles? It must be dialects. There can't be over 100 languages in the UK. It's just not big enough. But yeah. But in America, languages... See what it says.
Most of them only speak one language too. That being said, over 20% of the US is bilingual. Now,
Yeah, like particularly Spanish. A lot of Americans speak Spanish as well, particularly on the West Coast. Am I right? And down south, like in Albuquerque, a lot of people speak English and Spanish there. Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the military, because people outside the US will preach that America's military does, again, fill in the blank. Nobody is naive enough to think that the US doesn't have selfish interests in mind when it invades a country. There isn't a nation on earth that would do that selflessly. But whenever the bad goes down, it's just as common for other countries to complain that America should do something. On a more or less lighter note, Americans are fat.
I think I know why he's laughing, because he's an American saying that presenting a video that's called 25 Common Misconceptions About America That Aren't True. He's presenting this one, and are the words, "look at him," too harsh? I like this guy so far, though. Yeah.
Ever been to the UK?
It is true that America does have a problem with that, and so do we. It's becoming a much more widespread problem here in the UK as well. Obesity, particularly child obesity, becoming a much more common problem here. We're catching up to America in that particular race. No pun intended.
You ever been to the UK lately? There are even scandals because obese patients are getting turned down for surgery. Yes, America does have an obesity problem. But not all citizens are involved in it. I am. A big part of the United States is fairly health conscious and is consistently working to help the overweight population better their lives. Thanks, healthy people. And while we aren't perfect, many complain that...
I don't understand how every single American citizen who is, based on their earnings and their living conditions and circumstances, part of the working class, not making every possible effort that they can afford to make to stay as healthy as possible with the cost of healthcare in America. If I was in America and I didn't have insurance, because the smallest things cost ridiculous amounts of money to get treatment for. So, yeah, it is amazing that so many people over there are like obese, and it's not like rich people. So,
America is worse than healthy people. And while we aren't perfect, population better their lives. Thanks, healthy people. And while we aren't perfect, many complain that America is worse than other developed nations in, well, everything. There are many statistics, child mortality, literacy, etc., where the US falls behind countries like Norway and Iceland. But those statistics are based on averages.
Okay.
In Norway, most of the 5 million inhabitants are rich, white, and Norwegian. If you took a similar sample of rich, white Americans in the US, you would find that the statistics are almost exactly the same. The fact is that the US is hugely diverse, and the American experience is completely different with and without money. Translation? The problem isn't healthcare or education, it's economic inequality, almost exclusively. And speaking of inequality, many make the simple but powerful assumption that America just isn't safe. This is usually what foreign citizens say until they actually come here. By this same logic, Paris, Brussels, London, Madrid, and almost every other city in Europe is unsafe as well.
Yeah, but believe me when I say, as a British Englishman, British English citizen, when I say to you, London is not a safe place to be. Don't visit there, don't live there. Right now, you do not want to be there. I'm not just saying that because he's mentioned when people say, America's not safe, and like London, right, it's just not. It's not a safe place. I would not recommend. And my mum went and visited a cousin who doesn't even live in London. She lives on the outskirts of London last year, and I was actually worried about her going there. And she was only in Reading. She wasn't even in London. She was just near it. But because she was near it, that was enough to worry me. Do not go to London. It is not a safe place. Just wanted to say
yes,
that.
there are guns. But most Americans have never seen
so
or heard
dangerous.
a gun being fired. In fact, most Swiss citizens are much more familiar with gunfire than us Americans. All this being said so far, people still expect all Americans to relish in the life of our stereotypes. Guns, fast food, and freedom! What I'm saying is, a lot of the world looks at America as overly patriotic.
There's nothing
But here's an
wrong
honest
with that.
question. Have you ever met a Russian, Australian, a proud member of the UK?
Never let anybody make you feel guilty for being patriotic about your country. You should be proud of your country, and you should want to protect it and be proud of it and all that. So, I'd be proud if that was a stereotype about me and my country. But we're not. We're just letting anything and everything happen to our country right now.
There's no shame in having pride in your country. Us Americans are definitely patriotic. But so is the rest of the world.
Exactly.
As they should be. It's not a crime to be proud of where you came from. But that
Unless
doesn't
you're
stop
white
others from thinking we only
and live in the
complain and
West.
boast about America whenever we travel abroad.
Yeah, I said that.
This is largely anecdotal. In America, Americans like to complain just like the rest of us. Only a few of them ever even leave the country, so you're meeting an unrepresentative sample. But in their defense, many times, they're right. Yes, this can hit hard in the pride spot, but maybe Europeans could stand to smile a bit more, right? No? Okay, fine, back to the apathetic.
Yeah, again, there's a reason why Europeans don't smile as much as they used to. Again, I'm not going to get into it because I don't want to make this political, but we do have reasons for not being totally pumped about living here anymore.
Leave me alone face. By the way, that part was written for our European representative. By our European representative. Okay. I love all of you. Anyways, statistics viewed by outsiders show that the US is lagging behind. Similar to topics we've already discussed, there's another factor that we have to take into account. Reporting. Every nation reports its own statistics. This means that making statistical comparisons between two developed nations, like the US and the UK, is an exercise in futility. The data is just too close and won't reveal much except that the US counts people one way and the US counts them another. That still doesn't make this misconception true. Americans are fake. Here's the thing. In Europe, citizens are almost proud of the fact that they're really standoffish. But once you get to know them, they're your friend for life. Well, here's a newsflash. Once you get to know an American, they'll also be your friend for life. The thing is, though, they don't use this as an excuse to be a jerk in the beginning. This list sounds great coming from an American. I was totally the one who should have read this one, but I digress. On a totally different but very popular misconception, Americans are the only ones who call football soccer.
No.
Actually, a lot of the world.
Okay, no. Even I'll admit that that's not true, and it is silly that people actually think that. Also, I remember as a kid, every kid wanted those football boots, the bright lime green Nike Mercurials. Every kid wanted them, including me. I think I got a pair. I had the electric blue ones, and I think I had those as well. But yeah, no, we call it soccer in certain circumstances, like if it's in an official capacity. So if like the governing body's doing like a court case with a club or something, they will call it soccer. Or if some associations call themselves the Norfolk Soccer something. I mean, the governing body of the sport in England is called the PFA, the Professional Football Association, and the FA, the Football Association of England. But soccer is used in some situations.
The world calls it soccer. Even parts of Ireland still call it soccer. Oh, what do I mean by still? I'm glad you asked. It was actually the British who coined the term soccer.
Yeah, it was.
The word soccer is an abbreviation of association and first appeared in universities in the 1880s, sometimes using the variant spelled soccer with a K. The word is sometimes credited to Charles Redford Brown, an Oxford University student said to have been fond of shortened forms such as brekkers for breakfast and rugger for rugby football.
Brekkers.
Britain actually started using the word football in the late 20th century, possibly because people incorrectly saw it as an Americanism. This next one, Tristan couldn't believe. Could you?
I'm not sure about late 20th century. Pretty sure we were calling it football a lot further back than that.
Not.
No.
I'm learning something. To our American viewers, did you know
when you watch old World Cup highlights and you're listening to the English commentators, you do hear them saying soccer a lot instead of football, so...
that people in Europe make fun of Americanism? This next one, Tristan couldn't believe. Could you not?
No.
I'm learning something. To our American viewers, did you know that people in Europe make fun of you for using air conditioning? Why do they need it?
No, we don't. A lot of us, including me, ask why we don't have air conditioning here in the UK, because I wish we did. Because when we have heat waves, there's nothing we can do. We're stuck with it. Like, literally, not last year, was it the year before? We had like 2 days where it was like 40 degrees, and there was just nothing you could do. You were suffering. And I just remember thinking, from the moment I woke up that day to the moment I wouldn't say fall asleep, because I couldn't sleep because it was that hot. I just remember thinking all day, I wish I had an air conditioning unit. I wish there was air conditioning in this house. So no, we don't make fun of you for using air conditioning. Where have you heard that?
Why don't they just leave the window open of you for using air conditioning? Why do they need it? Why don't they just leave the window open? Mosquitoes, at least in Florida. But here's why they might be joining us soon. During the 2003 European heatwave, 70,000 people died. This was in large part due to the fact that European homes and buildings are not typically equipped with air conditioning. While they laugh at
British homes are built specifically to keep heat in, because we have more days without sunlight and with cold weather than we do with hot weather. So when there's a real heat wave in the UK, you just can't get comfortable or cool.
The Americans for this, hotter summers are going to force them to take appropriate measures, especially since children and the elderly are very susceptible. Again, I stand by mosquitoes. I'm not opening my window in the summer. Winter, absolutely, open windows. Moving into the top 9, that's the weird number. Top 9.
Top 9.
Many parts of the world accuse the United States of accounting for 25% of the world's carbon emissions. Not so nice. But it also accounts for 25% of the world's economic activity. The truth is that several nations, including countries like Canada, have higher per capita emissions than the US. Next, let's talk about how the world thinks Americans are ruining English. Actually, both British English and American English have diverged from a common 16th century ancestral standard, and in some ways...
Guilty. I have been guilty of this a couple of...
American English is closer to the original than British English. For example, American English has, for the most part, retained the language's rotosity, pronunciation of the R in words like hard, while British has, for the most part, dropped it. Furthermore, this shift in British English...
I'm sorry, but herb? What is that? It has a H. It's herb.
English happened around the time of the American Revolution, when wealthier Londoners wanted to distinguish themselves from the lower classes. This is only one example, but it goes to show that British English is not an unchanging standard any more than American English. On a totally different note, did you know that Americans don't all live in the suburbs. Nope, not true. The fact is that in America, you have plenty of people that live in cities like New York, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Chicago, Boston, and the list goes on.
Where have they got some of these from? What other people are they asking this stuff? So he's basically saying that people don't think that a lot of Americans live in cities. One of the main things America is known for, or the main things people know about America, is how many huge cities they have. That doesn't make sense either.
In D.C., San Francisco, Chicago, Boston, and the list goes on. In fact, several regions of the United States are very European, like the Northeast Corridor, for example. The difference between the U.S. and Europe is that if you want to live in the suburbs in the U.S., you can, but you don't have to. Salt Lake
City.
Now, this next one is just offensive. Americans are all dumb rednecks. While there are certainly Americans who fit this stereotype, the vast majority don't. Most Americans live in cities near the coasts. Most of them are educated, and most of them are not very different from Europeans in any significant way.
True.
Every country has a less educated populace that they themselves make fun of. Even sophisticated nations like Sweden and Switzerland. Fair warning, the last 5 on our list get a bit dark and crazy, starting with the idea that America is imperialistic. In many parts of Europe, the United States is seen as an aggressive imperial power, even more so than Russia and China. This is largely because our military presence both in Europe and everywhere else. But in our strong defense, Americans never forced you to watch our movies, quarter our soldiers, obey our laws, or get permission to leave your own countries. It was the Russians that did that, and much, much more. Food for thought, after World War II,
America has been spending its money on some very strange things lately, because since Elon Musk put his Doge, Department of Government Efficiency, they've done an investigation at the State Department and found that that Biden's government spent $19 million of taxpayers' money to make a Sesame Street show in Iran, or is it Iraq? And then they spent, I can't remember the exact amount. I think it was $500,000 of taxpayers' money to promote atheism in Nepal. Then they're spending vast amounts of money in Colombia to promote this, and there's a list. It's crazy. I just saw it today in a video, and it's just, yeah, like
Americans did that, and much, much more. Food for thought.
I can't wait to find out everything else about what his government did, because it's going to be crazy to read some of
Russians that did that, and much, much more. Food for thought. After World War II, the Americans liberated and left. The Russians liberated and stayed. All right, number 4 is sure to be a shocker to a lot of foreigners. Americans don't actually all walk around with guns. It's just not true. Except for a few places, the only people you'll ever see carrying guns in America are the police. In fact, you'll see more people walking around with guns in Switzerland than you ever would in America. Okay. We admit that, like most...
I didn't think that. It's just, it is true that a lot of people in America there's more guns in America than people. That is a fact. But I didn't think that every single person in America walks around with a gun. But
most stereotypes, there is some truth to this next one, but it's been wildly blown out of proportion. Americans are all crazy Christian right-wingers. There's something so right about saying it with that accent. Yes, there are a lot of Christians in America, and while some of them are crazy right-wingers, most of them aren't.
You just can't help yourself, can you? Crazy right-wingers. If you're right-wing, you're crazy. But if you're left-wing, you're the perfect image of a human being. Get on with it.
In fact, if you ever get a chance to go and stay with one of those crazy Christian families, you'll see that most of them are just...
Also, so what if somebody's Christian and passionate about it. So what?
Genuinely sweet people that go to church on Sundays. This next one sounds like a legit stand-up joke. If you get injured and can't pay for it, you'll just die in the street. Yeah, many people in Europe think this is what happens in America. As with most things that concern America, they're wrong. You can't be denied emergency medical care in the US. That would go against the Hippocratic Oath. The difference is that you get a bill in the mail a few months later. Of course, debt is another issue, but let's get into that right now. Americans are all in debt. Actually, European citizens carry more debt than Americans. The average household debt in the US, OECD, is 113% of the household's income. In the UK, it's 156%. In Sweden, 173%. And in Denmark, it's a whopping 305%. So, what are some misconceptions?
The average household debt in Denmark is 305% of the household's income. What the fuck are Danish people spending their money on? Wow, I didn't know that. That's mental.
Misconceptions about the US that you'd like cleared up? Or do you live in America and want to put a stereotype to rest? Let us know in the comments below, or tweet your answer.
I want to know some more about that thing about Denmark.
To us at list 25. And as an American, I apologize for everything going on right now. Don't worry, 2020 is just around the corner.
Oh, this was made in 2019. Oh, yeah, I didn't even look at the date. Right, that's it. Yeah, so, you know what? Most of them felt like the sort of... had like a 20th century feel to them. So now in the 21st century with social media and the internet and YouTube and videos like this, I feel like I myself, British people, non-Americans know a lot more about America now. Because it's so easy to access information about America. Yeah, a lot of these felt like the sort of ideas and stereotypes and misconceptions that people had back in the day. But he included them in the video. But what I'd like to know is how he got these. Who made the decision to choose these 25, and what led them to decide to use these 25? Did they take a survey from a certain amount of people from certain countries? How did they come up with this list? Or did they just Google things that people think about, that Europeans think about Americans, or British people think about Americans, and just make the list with that? Because that's what it felt like to me. It felt a bit lazy. It felt, well, not a bit, it felt very lazy. It's like literally just the most easy stereotypes an American could say. Oh, you know what Europeans think about us, Europeans think this, Europeans think that about us. The first thing they'd think of, the easiest ones to remember, and that's what they made the list with. Like, I think there was maybe one out of the entire 25 that I don't believe about Americans. I've just believed about the odd American, and there was one that I have seen evidence of. The rest of them, it was just like, nah, not really. Well, there you go. But that was it. That was the 25 common misconceptions about the United States that simply aren't true. And yeah, I've definitely heard of them all. Of course, I've heard that people think that all Americans have guns and they're all crazy rednecks and they're all crazy conservative right-wing Christians, and that they're all fat and they're all dumb and they don't know geography and they this, that, etc. Yeah, I've heard them all, but I don't believe them. But yeah. I think the list was just a bit too lazy. Again, it's the kind of... If YouTube had been around during the early 1990s, well, put it this way, if we had the technology that we have now back in the 1980s, and someone made this same video for their YouTube channel back then, the list would probably be exactly the same. That's what I'm trying to say. So, yeah, that's how it felt to me. But it was still an interesting video, and he did a good job of making it entertaining and a bit funny. So, fair play to him for that. Yeah. So there we go. A lot of British reactors do this video, and now I've done it. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will be doing more content like this. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you stick around, because there'll be more stuff, there'll be more content like this coming. And to everyone else on the channel, you may remember I put a post on last night saying that to celebrate hitting 3,000 subscribers, I'm going to do another Q&A. I'll be doing that very soon. So you've still got a bit of time to send in your questions, I think. Or I might do it after this, I don't know. Or I might do a half now and half tomorrow, I don't know. Well, send some questions anyway, whether you comment on this with questions or on the community post, because it's not going to be the last time I do a Q&A, and I might do it in 2 parts if I get enough questions. There's been a lot of questions already, so I could do, like, part 1, part 2. So yeah, send in questions anyway. It's for 3,000 subscribers, so it might be worth doing 2 videos for it. So there we go. That's that. So thanks everybody for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. I hope you enjoyed it. I've also got a Patreon. Make sure you check that out. Membership starts from $1 a month. It's the cheapest in the reaction community. I've got a Twitch channel, a TikTok channel, and a Facebook page. Although I don't really bother with TikTok anymore, so you don't not much point following that. But follow the Twitch channel, because there will be more streams coming up, especially as we get into summer. Also, you can follow the Patreon for free. It's worth doing, because I put a lot of updates on there about upcoming content and stuff that's happening. So you might as well do that. But that's it from me. I don't think there's anything else I need to tell you. No, that's everything. So, thanks everybody for watching, and I hope you have a great weekend, because it's Friday night when I'm posting this. So, yep, hope you have a great weekend, and I will see you all in the next one. Good night.